guys, and welcome back to another podcast. So if you have watched our first episode, you will know last week we talked about veganism. So today we're going to delve into the big old topic of sport. So us as both past sport athletes in different fields, we're going to chat about our experiences, where it got to us today, and how that's kind of shaped our careers. So if you are interested in sport and hearing two different sides of kind of sports athletes' perspectives, then do hit that like button on this podcast, and of course subscribe down below if you are new. Welcome to the podcast, hope you enjoy. And yeah, so that's what we're going to chat about today. Very interested to see your opinion and your side of your sport. But what I want to just mention is today we have got some lovely Jealous sweets here in front of us. So today they have kindly sent me some tangy worms. So we're going to be eating those and digging into them as we chat about sport. I just did want to mention as well, if you are interested in grabbing any of the Jealous sweets, you can get them at www.thejealouslife.com, and these are completely vegan. They are also gluten-free, and they are made with real fruit juices. They are also got no palm oil in them, and they've got no artificial colors or flavors. So they are super clean. They are plant-based, vegan, gluten-free, yummy sweets. Yep. And why not try one? Yeah. We'll try one on camera as we eat them with you guys. But yeah, you can get these in a lot of supermarkets. We have had them in the past. We bought them from Asda. So super accessible. They're pretty, treat. They're pretty.
No, they're good. They're, yeah, you wouldn't notice that they're
really good.
Like a vegan sweet, would you?
No, they're lovely.
They're definitely, yeah.
So we're gonna enjoy
tasty.
them. But definitely grab some up from your local supermarket. And yeah, as I said, you can grab them at thejealouslife.com. But we'll get into our podcast today, chatting about sport. So, a little bit of a sport background, just so you're not totally confused. Oh, gotta swallow them before I start chatting. So, just a little sports background there. So, for me, I personally started swimming when I was 7. At that point, I was actually in 2 clubs at that point, and just swimming at like quite a casual basis. At that point, obviously, I was only 7 years old. And then I swam competitively up until I was 17 and competed at Scottish Nationals. My event was 200 meters butterfly, so that's 8 lengths butterfly. And yeah, fly was my favorite stroke, and yeah, just competed at a national level. So I trained a hell of a lot, 7 days a week, and yeah, that was a big part of my life. So from then, I've kind of now gone into teaching, and kind of on the flip side, I'm being a coach for younger swimmers and getting them introduced and loving the sport as much as I did, kind of taking on my passion into the younger generation. And that's pretty much my sport background. I was very focused in the one field of sport. But Tim has kind of a different kind of perspective.
Yeah, like with most kind of young boys, I just tried a lot of different sports growing up. Australian rules, football, cricket, basketball. And then I started skateboarding when I was 12, and that was one of my kind of big passions, was skateboarding. Which kind of, I stopped a lot of the other sports because of skateboarding. I'd be too sore or injured to actually do those team sports. And then I started up basketball kind of in my late teens, and I've kind of kept on with that, playing at various clubs in Perth, Australia, and playing in the National League in Scotland. And I did start golf when I was 21, and turned professional in that kind of in my mid-20s. So I've competed in a few sports at a reasonably high level, you could say, I guess.
Always humble.
It's all relative. Maybe not as high as some, but it's, yeah, still.
Yeah, but we still have like interesting experiences to chat about our sports, and yeah, just kind of like different techniques that we took, different approaches that worked for us, because I think it's such a personal thing. Speaking to other athletes and other swimmers, I mean, I remember so clearly the mental preparation that went into every competition. So you would think obviously an athlete, a lot of it is physical, but so much of it is mentally, how well you prepare in advance before a big meet. So for us at a swimming competition, mental preparation before, I would be visualizing my swim. So if it was my 200 meters butterfly, I would be visualizing that swim weeks before. It would get to the point that I'd be in my bed at night and still running over that race over my head so many times, ways it could go badly, ways that it could go really well, ways that even silly things that would probably never ever happen, like me swallowing water and having to stop, you know what I mean? Like, but it's ways of me visualizing it, so that therefore I've gone, okay, this is every possible way that I can think this, how this race is going to go, so that I'm prepared for every outcome mentally, and just, yeah, physically I'm ready to overcome that if anything was to happen in the pool, or when I get out I'm not going to be like overly disappointed. I've already kind of visualized it in my head. But obviously right up until pretty much before you dive in that pool, I would still be visualizing it, and especially on the days running up to a big meet, I'd be visualizing it like going perfectly well. Because of course, like everything, visualizing it how you want it to go, the best possible outcome, it's all about that mental positive preparation, that if you're likely to visualize it properly, you're more likely to going to be swimming it in that way that you have already previously visualized. So I spent a lot of time in what we call as the call room, or the marshalling room, at big swimming meets, where you wait and you get, before you get your name called out, before you go and you're all sat in your heat, and before you then make your way into the big like arena or the swimming pool, wherever it is, to start your race. And so when I was waiting there, it's very interesting, everyone's different like kind of ways that they, I don't know, like the way they like approach their race. So some people are really chatty before their race, and that's how they deal with their nerves. Other people are really quiet, and they have like their music plugged in, and they're just very in the zone. And then there'll be other people that just, I don't know, everyone kind of deals with it differently in preparation before a race. And because swimming a lot of the time as well, it's over within a few minutes, so it's really crucial, that mental preparation, that you're thinking what's going through your head in those 10 minutes or 15 minutes before you get in that water. So for me, I'd be sat in the call room and I would have my music in, my iPod, and I would be like layered up, all like so many layers on top of my swimsuit, so that was super warm, because that was one thing our coach always drilled into our head, was make sure you're warm. I don't want you guys cold as you're waiting around for what can be like 20 odd minutes before you get in that water. You want to make sure your muscles are ready to go. So yeah, I'd have like my music on, my favourite playlists, and just be getting in the zone. I wouldn't really chat to anybody, especially at the big nationals events. Half the swimmers I didn't even really know, to be honest, didn't swim with them on a regular basis. So I would just really be in the zone, running through the race over and over in my head, every turn, everything, how I was going to swim it, because I'd always have a chat before the race for like 10 minutes just with my coach, and he'd go, so how are you going to swim this race today, Jenny? What are you going to do? And we would just discuss together exactly how I was going to swim it. So things like the first 50 meters I was going to go out sprint, then slowly bring it back on the second 50, third 50, slowly start picking up that pace again, and the last 50 is just give it everything you've got. So kind of just like little strategies of how I was going to swim that race depending on how I was feeling on that day. But yeah, so there's a lot of mental preparation side of things that comes into it, not only within the call room, but then as you get called up onto the blocks. I remember numerous times being in a race with people that are very, not trying to be intimidating, but the other athletes beside me are all getting themselves really all ready. People will be hitting their arms and legs, like getting ready up on the block, like really quite like active with their preparation. And I would be like warming up, like doing dynamic warm up, just so that my muscles were ready, but I was never like slapping my legs and it's kind of like what animals would do or something in the wild, like an intimidating kind of like thing before.
Yeah,
but you just had to block it out, and it's one of those times that you have to just forget what everyone else is doing around you. They've got their kind of routine, they've got what works for them in their race. But for me, in that point in time, it was, I focus, forget all the other lanes, I'm swimming my race, I'm swimming it how my coaches told me to do it. I'm going to prepare my body, do my dynamic warm-up as I would do. Don't need to be doing any slapping the legs business. And breathing techniques was a massive one for me, especially at nationals. It was intimidating. There was lots of big swimmers out there. There was people, Olympians that were there. There was Hannah Miley at a lot of our nationals events. And it's an intimidating venue. You're in a big venue, sometimes a 50-meter pool, so many people watching you. Everything is kind of on that few minutes. Like, it feels like everything you've worked up to for months and months and months is in that event. So of course pressures are high, nerves are high. Breathing techniques is a massive one that I found, that I just honestly, I would stand there and I would just breathe in really slowly for 3 and just really slowly out for 3, and just make sure every breath was really big, like really big inhale, really big exhale. Just try and get all of my nerves out and just really focus on my breathing, try and tune out to any kind of atmosphere that was happening around me. And that's personally what worked for me. And I know a lot of athletes, even from at my level, national level, up to like Commonwealth Games, World Championships, Olympians, all of these kind of athletes, amazing athletes out there, a lot of them visualize their strokes, visualizing their turns, their finishes, everything, right to the minor details. And they also do breathing practice just to level out that breathing, regulate it, because the last thing you want is to be kind of hyperventilating and really high nerves. Then when you dive in the pool, you're straight away, your breathing's not regulated. So with something like swimming, of course you don't want to choke on water. That's going to cost you a couple of seconds, you know, trying to adjust yourself, get back into your rhythm. You want to be as calm and level-headed as possible, because you know you can swim that race. You've swam it so many times in training, you swam it amazingly, you've put all the practice in. It's just about putting that into play when it matters. So yeah, that was a very long-winded answer, but that it is so much. It's such a big topic to go into. Like, mental preparation is really something that clearly I'm quite passionate about. So yeah, if you guys do want another podcast on just mental preparation, because I don't think it really matters what sport it is, it's quite a general topic that you can discuss, and for me obviously it worked for swimming, and just, I don't know, I think it's just so important to not just focus on all the physical aspects of how you're going to swim that race and all the training. It's about how you feel in that moment and dealing with your feelings and your thoughts, because one thought can take you off, and that you've run away with that thought that, oh my gosh, I'm gonna swallow water and I'm never gonna be able to do this, or I'm gonna get too tired, oh my legs are achy, oh I didn't have a good sleep last night. You might as well just walk away from it then, if you're gonna let a little minor thought like that that's come into your head for 10 seconds ruin kind of something that you've been working on for months. Yeah,
it's really about the process, isn't it? Like making sure you go over everything in your head. Like, say in regards to golf, you need to every shot needs to be very similar. You need to go over the process in your head each time. Make sure it's the same. Otherwise, if you start thinking of other things and letting them get into your head, it does change everything. And being prepared for when it doesn't go to plan, that mental preparation is like,
it prepares you for the outcome.
Yeah, you need to be, because if you let that, say, get to you, if we'll call it failure, but I don't really like saying the word failure.
No, but you still learn from it.
Yeah, if you do fail, you need to be strong enough to keep improving and going back and training and still wanting to improve. Even like the best in their sport, I'm sure, are always looking at ways to improve, and that's why they're at the top. But if you think you're good and you settle for being good, then you're never going to improve. Yeah. So I mean, but like in regards to like not going to plan, like I've had like the biggest golf tournament I played in, which isn't huge, but to me personally it was big, which definitely played with my nerves. Yeah. And that goes to, so a lot of people might have thought this isn't a big tournament, so they weren't nervous, but for me it was big. And I definitely didn't do a lot of mental preparation. I would practice hitting balls, practice chipping and putting, but then when it got to it, my mind wasn't ready for it.
That's it.
And I really struggled like in the first half of the round, and that's
until you got over that, like the nerves.
Once I start calming down and that, and then I improved from there on. But do need to be prepared.
Yeah.
Like, it's huge to make sure you're prepared for...
Yeah. There's times though, when we talk about this though, like there's also the flip side that you can prepare so much and it still doesn't go how you want it to. So it's about not just the preparation, how the race is going to go, but the preparation of how you're going to act and feel, and just your attitude towards your sport is so crucial, because I've had times when I've gone in for an event, I've trained the best I've ever trained. I've had amazing swims in training. I've had practice swims, and the coach has gone, you're training amazing at the moment, like this is going to be good, like this meet is going to be good. It gets all built up in your head. You get to that swim on that day, I've not had a good sleep. I've not slept well, because a lot of the time at my meets I would be sleeping in a hotel because they were far away from home. So I'd be sleeping in a hotel, bed I don't know, around an area I don't know, like just, you know what it's like when you sleep in a hotel, you don't sleep as well. Like I just wouldn't get a good night's sleep, and then I'd wake up in the morning, you know, the nerves would get to me, and then I'd be at the pool, I swim the race, I thought I'd swim it well, and I get out, it turns out I didn't get a personal best. And then it's about how you then deal with that. And don't get me wrong, it's hard to walk out of those races and go, oh, well, there's always next time. You know, it's kind of normal to be disappointed, and then your reaction to that. And I've had times I've cried after a race because I've worked so hard, like why did I not get it this time? Like you don't understand why it didn't work in that moment. But there's not necessarily one reason that it just didn't come together, it just didn't. And I think it's about learning from that. And sometimes I would take like a week off after a big meet, and I would just have that time to analyze why it didn't go well, because in the first like 10 minutes after the race, I'm just like, how could it not have gone well? There's no reason why it wouldn't have gone well. But when you have the week after to like analyze and think about it, you're like, okay, right, it's fine, that happened, and now where am I moving on from that? How am I going to make sure that that next race I do isn't going to make me feel like that when I get out of the pool? And it is just this roller coaster journey, like most things. You do have times when you have amazing highs, and they come out of nowhere, and you're like, wow, like I never expected to swim that amazingly, I never expected to perform that good. You put in the work, but it still shocks you sometimes, and you're like, you're literally on cloud 9, like this is amazing. And those are the times that make you keep coming back. You keep going back to the pool for those hours and hours and hours that you're training so hard, putting your body through like really tough times. But you do it even though there's the bad times, because you know that from the bad times you learn, you analyze your stroke, you analyze what went wrong. Actually, you tweak little minor things that make it amazing when you come back and you perform, and your competitors are like, whoa, where did that come from? And you're like, well, I knuckled down, I realized what went wrong. And you know, you kind of do, you just learn from it. You get feedback not only from your coach, who's obviously outside of the pool watching in on your swim, he can notice things, or she can notice things, but also just yourself. Sometimes you just know, you just go, oh, actually my turn was pretty slow, I was pretty sluggish off the blocks that day, or whatever it is. Like, you know, it can be something so small, but it does make such a big difference with a sport, especially like swimming, where it's hundreds of seconds. That's the difference between winning a race and coming 5th. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
Just enjoying
it.
Ad break. That's kind of the two sides of it. Is like, yeah, there's definitely times for both of us that it's gone badly. There's been big competitions we've wanted to do so well because it's mattered to us so much. That's why we spend all the hours at training, because we love the sport. And you have to love it. That's another thing. You have to love the sport to spend that much time on it, because the amount of hours that go into a week of training for an athlete is phenomenal. Definitely. It is amazing. It is such a dedicated thing for people to do.
It's definitely 24/7. You need to be worried about what you're eating before an event, the night before an event, the morning of the event. All that kind of stuff goes into it. Your sleep, you got to make sure you're sleeping well. But also what I wanted to talk about was like team sports versus versus individual sports. Like playing a lot of team sports growing up, still playing basketball. You need to be prepared for like not even playing. Like I would have the day, like games, say we're warming up, and I would feel like I didn't miss a shot, feel fit, ready to play, and then I didn't even get on the court at basketball. And it's like, you've kind of got to accept that and be ready for the next game and keep training, keep doing your best no matter what. And even though like some friends would say, oh, look, I've got no idea why you didn't play, you warmed up so well.
Yeah.
For me as a coach, I would be looking at people warming up, because sometimes your best player isn't having the best warm-up or the best whatever, and you need to be ready for that. And like sometimes with an individual sport, golf, skateboarding, I've never had that, well, I didn't have that, because it's all you, it's all on you, and like you know with swimming, it's but when you've got to rely on
that's what I think
a coach to actually put you in, it's
it's really interesting, because for me, like obviously swimming was a very individual sport. It's kind of your fault really if you mess up. It's all on you, the pressure's on you, but at the same time it's good because you don't have to rely on anybody else's performance. You have no one else that's kind of distracting you away. It's your sport, it's your time in the pool, you're what's going to make you get yourself a PB. It's your training at the end of the day. Your coach can nag you all the time if they want, but it's you that's got to put in the effort, and it's you that's got to swim the race how you want to swim it. But that's what's so interesting, because I never did a team sport, so actually going to watch you at basketball and just noticing there's definitely so many benefits to a team sport, in the sense that there was nice like morale, and there was like the atmosphere of a team sport, whereas swimming, it's very, like I said, I plug in my headphones, I'm there, it's for me. We were a team as we turned up to the competition, but you were swimming there for your own race. You could be swimming against your team members. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's just the difference there of the atmosphere as you are a team working together. If you're on the bench, the morale, come on guys, like, you know, like that kind of side of it is really interesting. And we got little glimpses of that when we did like relays at competitions. But I think it is hard, because you're relying on, in a relay there'll be 3 other swimmers as well as you, so 4 in total, and you are relying on those other swimmers to also perform at their best. And you feel the pressure from them as well, because if they're all swimming amazing on form that day and you like are holding back a little bit, then you've let down the team. So there's so many sides of it. They're just quite interesting to see the kind of comparison. And I did always wish that I did a team sport when I was younger, but now looking back, I actually really liked that my sport was individual, because I was in control of how it kind of shaped my performance.
After seeing me sit on the bench for an entire game, it's definitely made you...
Like there was no way that I'd be turning up to a competition and not getting in. Like I was getting in that pool and swimming that race. You know, like I didn't have to rely on other people to choose if I was swimming that race. So I think it is quite interesting seeing you with your sport and as a team kind of aspect. But yeah, so I think it's quite interesting as well is to note like how sport, so taking it out of context a little bit, but how sport has then shaped our life like now. So for you, as you said, you did your PGA professional, you became a PGA professional, so you kind of took that a bit further, and you were interested in playing, but then you were wanting to take it a little bit further into like career wise as well.
I mean, like I started playing golf, I wanted to teach, basically. I wanted to help people enjoy, similar to reason to you coaching swimming, like I wanted to help people enjoy the game that I enjoy so much, to make sure they kind of improve. So turning professional was more of a wanting to get more people involved and more people enjoying the game than wanting to play on tour kind of thing. I was never a player as such. I was more of a teacher really. But yeah, so that's kind of why I went into that side of things. I just wanted other people to enjoy it, because golf can be a very demoralizing game. Like you feel like sometimes you will never get better. Sometimes you'll be playing really good, really happy with it, and then all of a sudden there's just a switch, and you can't ever see yourself playing good again, kind of thing. And then when you're playing good, you can never see yourself playing bad. Like it is a crazy game. So definitely knowing how it feels and being able to help people definitely made me want to help others out.
You can put yourself in their shoes. Like that's the thing I find is like, that's one thing that I really like teaching like older children. So they're still learning to swim, but it's like teaching them to kind of love the sport. When I teach older children, I really enjoy that, because you can get like a nice rapport with them, get a bit of banter going, and you can kind of get them to love swimming rather than just see it as this like thing that their parents just drop them off to, and it's like, oh, when really like swimming should be seen as a life skill. Like a lot of parents do not prioritize swimming lessons. They just see it as like just another club that they should go to. But when you think about it, especially for like countries like Australia, a lot of children are going on like holidays, they're near the sea. Like it's super important that children know how to swim. And like kind of moving forward from that is, I love like coaching and the stroke development side of stuff, because I feel like as a past athlete in swimming, I can give that experience from what I've learned through my swimming, not only within the pool but also outside of the pool side of stuff, because I think it is easy for like young athletes to just kind of forget that side of stuff, and they just put everything into what they do at training, but they kind of forget all of the mental preparation before, and just generally like their food, nutrition, any exercise that they're doing outside of training, like any land training side of stuff is super important. So I think that side of stuff is just, I don't know, it's nice to give back and inspire like another generation in a sport that we spent so much time with. Yeah, it also helps kids mature quickly, is probably what I was going to say. Like it does, yeah. It's definitely, gives them independence. Golf is definitely one, because being around golf, it's kind of seen to be a rich person's game, I guess. Not so much anymore, but it was seen to be that. So kids had to be very polite, well-mannered around clubhouses and golf courses in general. But also like team sports, I found they kind of set you up for real-world situations later on, having to work in a team. The sacrifices you have to make sometimes, like you have to support other people in your team, like whether that's in a job or wherever it is, all kind of transferable skills, isn't it? Like it's so important, and you can tell the difference between a child who has definitely not been in a team sport and just not got that attitude towards life in general. Like they've not, I think it is so important like to get children involved in sport, even if it's just like once a week or just anything. It's not even just about them staying active, but just in general about having like a dedication to something, and kind of like I don't know, like putting in time to something, and then they kind of see the rewards that come back from it, because that's like, you can see that with lots of things, you know, if you're not going to put the time and effort into it, then you're not going to get anything back from it. And I think that would relate to even their schoolwork, for example. If you're not going to put work into school, then you're not going to get anything back with your grades, for example. So well, that's it, and it kind of reflects. It does, because say if you're part of a team sport, you listen to your coach. You're more likely to listen to your teachers at school, because you're used to listening and taking advice, or being told to do something. You'll generally do it. Like you get used to that. You accept that. Okay. Yeah. I definitely know which children don't listen at school, because they don't listen at the pool either. And they even had one actually that told me the other night, that's what my teacher tells me as well, because I told him to sit up on the side because he wasn't listening. So he said, hey, my teacher said that to me the other day. Well, there we go then, so I'm telling you. But yeah, it's very true. And I think also from another side of it is that how coaches act with their athletes really determines the performance of the athlete. The same way that your teammates around you influence your performance. Because say if we're doing a basketball and your team was all just like, oh, can't be bothered today, like, oh, I'd rather just go out, like I just don't want to do this. If their attitude's like that, you're going to find it hard to bring your A game. You're going to find it hard to be like motivated and inspired to be there. Whereas if you got a team that's like so inspired, they're training all the time, they're going out of their way, not just in training time, but they're going out of their way to put in effort, you're going to feel like, well, I've got to keep giving my all. I've got to keep pushing these guys forward. Definitely. And you're all there to support each other and drive forward for the better. But the same way a coach can really bring out very different sides of an athlete. Like, I mean, I was very lucky in that for my swimming coach side of stuff, when I was a swimmer, it was great. His attitude was very much like, we were in control of our sport, you guys need to put in the effort. If you're not going to put in the effort, like, it's not his job to make us put in the effort. And I think that's great, because they made us as like teenagers grow up, make sure we were like in control of what we were putting the time into. If we didn't want to be there, we didn't have to be there. He's not going to force us to spend all this time at the pool. It made it pretty clear who was there and who loved the sport for them, not because their parents or any other external pressures, just because they loved the sport and they wanted to do well in it. So it's kind of like he had a great attitude in that way, and just it does make a difference if you've got a coach that's really supportive and sits down and chats with you and just kind of listens and takes on board what you say, because it's a two-way street, you know. It's like if your coach is telling you this isn't going so well, you have all of the right to be like, no, I'm doing this and this and this. Like, it's a two-way conversation. But
that's it.
Where if it's just, there's no kind of compromise, there's no kind of middle ground, and your coach is very just like, this is how it's going to be, this is how I've coached for years, this is what works. No, that's never going to work, because it's so personalized to every single athlete. You have to have a different approach to every single swimmer, every single basketball player, whoever it is out there. Your coach has to personalize their attitude, their support, their training, everything.
Yeah, so that's like having a coach or a management that actually forms a relationship or friendship with you.
Yeah.
You're going to get the best. Well, I'm going to give my all if I've got somebody that listens to me, that you've kind of formed that friendship with.
You're more inclined to do well and want to do well for them.
Yeah, whereas if you feel like you're giving input that just gets tossed aside, you don't really feel valued as like a person, really, as a player on the team. It's like, I like being listened to. You feel like your input matters, even if they don't take it on board. Somebody who just listens makes a big difference, and you feel like whatever you
That's all you
say
need sometimes.
matters to, say, the team.
For sure.
But yeah, I feel, I don't know. Yeah, it's
I think
definitely...
it's hard. I think it's hard as a coach to find that nice balance between being like mates with them, but also like still having that discipline, especially if they're young upcoming athletes. Like, you still need to have that sense of discipline. You can't just let them like rule it, because otherwise there's not going to be that kind of structure. You need to have that structure there. And the athletes need that structure as well. They need that structure told when they need to do this, this and this and this, until they get of the age that they then, you know, they're disciplining themselves, they're making sure their time management, they're scheduling out their weeks to fit around their schedules. But I think, yeah, it is super important to have a coach that does support you and just kind of treats you as an individual, not just as the team, and just takes time with just you as an athlete. Because, for example, in my like swimming club, we all had our different like speciality. We all had our different like strokes that we specialized in, and so we couldn't do training just for general. Like, we couldn't. Everybody had to do training specific to their event. Like, it couldn't just be, we're all just going to go out and do this. And I think that's the same with most sports. Even with basketball, it's like you've all got different positions, you've all got different strengths and weaknesses. Your coach has to then try and personalize as much as possible, try and personalize the training to that, because otherwise everyone's going to have their imbalances and weak parts to their game and strong parts. But obviously it is also the athletes' kind of effort that they need to put in to then make sure that they're bumping up their game and kind of making sure that they're strong in as many aspects as they can. You've still got to put the time in outside of training, because your coach can't do it all. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think coaches does have such a massive influence, especially on young athletes. And there's some like awful stories about some coaches that make athletes do silly things in order to perform better, and making like, especially to do with like nutrition and overtraining athletes and that kind of thing, and leading to injuries and stuff like that. So it's a very fine line between making sure you get the most out of your athletes, but also making sure that their mental well-being is still, as they're growing up as well, like they're going through a lot if they're still at school and that kind of thing. Like, it's a lot for a young person to deal with if they're within sport. So it's kind of, yeah, finding that happy balance. But yeah, so from there I think, yeah, just about, obviously as we said, it's lots of highs and lows as you go through your career or through your fitness, even if it's not even within sport, just your fitness journey. Like, there's going to be highs and lows. You got to like kind of like accept that, really, and take it as it comes. But I think another thing is just that, yeah, sometimes you are going to have times that you are going to have to sacrifice. If it's something, especially within sport, and it's a massive part of your life, and for me personally, swimming was a massive part of my life. I absolutely loved it. I would spend as much time as I could at training so that I was bringing my best performance to the upcoming competitions. And because of that, I did miss things at school. I was at school at the time, obviously I was in high school, and I was going into a lot of competitions at that time. Most weekends I would spend at the swimming pool, Saturday, Sunday, and then every day during the week I was at training. So every night when my friends were finishing school and they would be going to hang out, or they would be going down the high street and go to each other's houses and have movie nights and those kind of things, I would be like, well, not me tonight, I'm off to training. Like, and those were when I chose to do that though. I chose to do that sacrifice, until still to this day, I do not regret any of those decisions. Definitely not. Like, it was the best thing for me, not only within sport, but also it took me to where I am today, and teaching other people and becoming a trainer and a coach, and my mental attitude towards sport in general is then being shaped by that, and me having to make those sacrifices when I was younger. But I just think, yeah, it's one of those things that you might, I mean, sometimes I miss like a school dance, or I miss like parties and that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, I chose to be there. I was at the competition, I was with like loads of my friends for my team, competing, and yeah, competing with top Scottish athletes. So really can't complain. Some great experiences, and yeah, stuff that I would definitely, so many experiences, so much I've learned that I've taken forward into my mid-20s. So yeah, I think it's very interesting how sport kind of delves in and kind of winds and links up to lots of aspects of your life, and just, it does make a massive difference if you did have a good experience and a good coach when you were younger, how that's now reflected, and still want you to have a kind of participation and still want to carry on that love for sport, influencing others to this day. But yeah, I think that is, unless you've got anything else to add for this podcast today?
No, yeah, that's it.
That's pretty much everything for our podcast today on sport and mental preparation, and just, yeah, how to get the most out of your athletes. If you are a coach, you might have taken some little pointers from here. I just wanted to move on to a little question time. So on my Instagram is @SomaCoach. If you don't already follow me, I've got it down below in the description box. But if you don't follow me, then do check it out, because before each podcast every week, I'll be putting up a question box on my story to see any questions that are related to the topic. So for today's question box, it was anything to do with sport or swimming or any top tips. So a question that was put in was any top tips for open water swimmers. For me personally, I swam a lot of the time in the pool. I've swum now and again in open water, but I know it's definitely a very different technique to swimming in the pool. One major thing is, obviously when you're swimming in the pool, you've got the lane ropes, you go straight down the pool, down the lane, nice and easy. When you're swimming open water, it's super important to make sure that you're super comfortable with your front crawl technique, because most of the time if you're open water swimmer, you will be swimming front crawl. So getting that technique perfected in the pool before you then take it to open water swimming, because you will have to readjust that stroke. And also a lot of the time open water swimming is long distances, so you should be able to have that stamina and endurance to swim longer than the open water swim in the pool, if that makes sense. So swimming more distance in the pool than you would be open water, because open water is going to be more tiring, it's a lot more tough on the body, and the technique is going to be a little bit different, which then is going to make a little bit more energy expenditure. So therefore, making sure that you're swimming more distance in the pool, so that when you come to swimming open water, you're by all means confident to do that distance. Another thing is also just making sure that you're actually implementing training in for like a substitute stroke. So yes, a lot of the time you will swim front crawl open water, just because it is the easiest, because you look forward to check where you are in your surroundings, but having a relief stroke, so a popular one would be breaststroke, just so that you can have a little relief, a little bit of a change up for your technique. So just making sure that you're kind of improving that relief stroke as well, because obviously you don't want to be wasting too much time in your open water distance swims and not really moving any distance when you do the relief stroke. So just coming back to the front crawl, practicing in the pool as well as open water training, practicing looking forward, because obviously you don't want to be veering off and going in the total wrong direction. So making sure when you are swimming, you get used to leveling out your technique so that when you're raising your head forwards, obviously your body position is then going to be compromised, you're not going to be in that streamline, but when you're raising your head forward, making sure that you're not falling out of that rhythm, because you will naturally have a rhythm, you will have a side that you breathe to when you're in the pool practicing, but when you translate that to open water, you need to make sure that you still kept that nice rhythm even though you're lifting your head forward, and also practice breathing to both sides. Because open water can throw some lovely things at you, and you don't want to feel that you can only breathe to the one side, especially with currents and open water swimming events. A lot of the time you're swimming in a group. You're going to have people from all angles all around you, so training and practicing in a group if you can. Currently maybe not with COVID, but maybe you can in open water. Yeah. But yeah, just practice training with a group, because it isn't like a totally friendly environment. Open water swimming events, there's a lot of people, big packs, everyone's swimming around you. Make sure you're used to that kind of atmosphere, because you don't want to be overwhelmed by that situation. Another one is, as well as doing the relief stroke and like easing your body off and letting them have that kind of rest period but still moving on in the distance, is another one is treading water. So with long distance open water swims, you will sometimes have like boats out there that give you like food and water and that kind of thing to keep you going if it is a really long event. So just really practicing that treading water, because the last thing you want is to have a bad treading water or like a bad egg beater kick for your treading water, that you're actually like tiring yourself out doing treading water. Whereas you want, when you're doing the treading water, it wants to be like a relaxing rest period rather than it make it even harder and more strenuous on your body. Yeah. And then the final one, moving on, was just one might be overlooked a little bit, to be honest, but with open water swims, a lot of the time you'll be swimming out in the sea, you'll be going around a buoy, you'll be coming back to the land and doing like kind of loops like that in the water. But translating that into how you could train that in the pool is get a friend or even a float or something like that and pop that in the middle of the pool, so you practice doing that nice loop around. So practice turning around a buoy efficiently, because you don't want to be doing a big loop around that buoy and coming back on yourself and adding on extra distance when you don't need to. So just really speeding up those turns, and the same way that a pool swimmer would practice their turns at the end of a pool, you want to be practicing your turns in the middle of open water, not turning, like not putting your feet down on the ground obviously, and just going around a pool like a buoy, which would be in the sea. But yeah, so some little top tips there. Hopefully some of those are helpful. And obviously a big one, if you are in the UK or somewhere cold, please wear a really warm wetsuit. I have a 6mm winter wetsuit and that keeps me nice and toasty. But yeah, it's just kind of about like changing up your technique and getting used to how to swim in a wetsuit as well, because that is a totally different ballgame to swimming as a swimmer in a pool. So it's just about making sure you're totally confident with your new technique in the pool and practicing those techniques in the pool, like lifting your head up and checking your surroundings and sightings and doing turns in the pool and all these kind of things, so that when you translate that to open water and you're in a big event with a lot of people swimming in a group, you're not going to be overwhelmed. You're going to know how to swim your technique and hopefully perform well. But yeah, that is pretty much the end of the podcast today, chatting about sport. So if you guys do have any little favourite topics you want us to discuss, then pop them in the comments box below. I think we're going to make this a weekly thing. We're enjoying having a little chit chat. Definitely. And yeah, but remember guys to check out in the description box below, I'll pop the Jealous Sweets link so you can buy them at jealouslife.com. And yeah, these were really lovely. I mean, we've nearly finished the whole packet already. Yeah, no, they're good. They're really good though. They're really flavoursome and they're kind of a little bit sour as well. So yeah, definitely check out these vegan, gluten-free, yummy, healthy sweets. And we will see you in the next video. Bye guys. Bye.